Morning. Hey, Easter is happening. It's coming. It's going to be here next week. I hope you're planning on being a part of that. And then in 2 weeks, we're starting a brand new series that I want to encourage you. And if I could be so bold, just ask you, maybe make plans for the next couple of Sundays to be with us, because we're going to be talking about what it looks like to wrestle with God. The tension that you feel in life when it comes to family, when it comes to your finances, when it comes to just kind of fear about missing out or not having enough or whatever it is that might be creating a grinding tension in your life. How do you wrestle through that? Do you wrestle against God or do you wrestle with God? And not only, working through those situations, what is God actually doing and why hasn't he fixed it yet? And so if you've ever thought about those kind of things, I hope you'll be with us. I hope you'll bring somebody with us, with you when we start this new series in 2 weeks called Wrestling with God. But today I want to tell you a little bit about a very short portion of my history. And to do that, I need you to think about something. I need you to think about your last bad boss. And if it's your current boss, I apologize, but think about your last bad boss. What were they like? What made them your bad boss in your mind? What was it about them or how they interacted or whatever it was that made you think of them as a bad boss? Because I used to work at Valley National Bank for you longtime Phoenix people. How many people know what Valley National Bank is? All right, like 8 of you. Okay, the rest of you know what Chase Bank is. They bought Valley National Bank, but a long time ago, this was the big bank in Arizona. I worked for them, and my bad boss was there. His name was Bill Turley, and ironically, he was followed by Bill Scott, who was one of the best bosses that I ever had. But Bill Turley was not all that interested in Brett. Bill Turley didn't really talk to me very much. He never gave me important work to do. He never really even acknowledged that I existed and really didn't care what I was doing or what I wasn't doing. Bill Scott, on the other hand, he checked in with me almost every day. He kept giving me challenging assignments. He kept asking for more from me. He worked hard to help me move ahead. And so, not hard to figure out which Bill do you think I worked hard for, right? I mean, obviously, you work hard for the people that you want to follow, and you don't hardly work at all for the people you don't want to follow. What makes a good leader? And most of the time, it's not hard to figure out. There's all kinds of lists. There's all kinds of stuff. You can go online and Google, good leader, good boss, bad leader, bad boss, whatever, and find all these lists. But really, you know how to determine whether somebody is worth following or not. Most of the time, all you need is a few glimpses of them under pressure, and you know pretty quickly, is this somebody that I should follow or somebody I should unfollow? For a lot of people, Jesus is a leader that for whatever reason, people have unfollowed. They're hesitant. It's not they don't like Jesus, but they're not sure they want to follow Jesus, because there's a difference between liking someone and following someone. And the reasons that people give, maybe you've experienced this too. Maybe the Jesus that you were shown or the Jesus that you knew about was a Jesus that was only interested in your money. Or maybe it was a Jesus that seemed to prefer men over women, or a Jesus that was critical and harsh, or a Jesus that really said, well, if you'll do right, then I'll treat you right. And honestly, if that's the Jesus you know, I understand. I wouldn't follow that Jesus either. But I would suggest that maybe if that's the only Jesus you know, there's another version, a more accurate version of Jesus that you need to see. And to be fair, what we can do today is we can look at Jesus under some of his most pressure-filled moments and how he responded and how he cared about the people around him, even though he was under intense pressure, to kind of see what kind of leader he is. And while there were many moments like that in the life of Jesus, probably the most powerful moments happened near the end of his life. And so if you have a Bible, we're going to look at a couple of different places, but if you've got a Bible or an app you want to follow along, we're going to be in Mark chapter 10. The followers of Jesus are doing exactly that. They are literally following him as he's walking down this road in this first little moment that we're going to look at. And they had seen Jesus do some incredible stuff. If you've been with us through the series, God of Miracles, he's healed people that nobody could heal. He has stopped storms. He has fed people. He has opened blind eyes. He has been engaged with some of the brightest minds of their culture and made them look foolish. He always wins. He always comes out on top. And so they've seen all of this. But I got to be honest with you, they were not ready for what he was about to do next. And just to be fair, you wouldn't be either. And maybe you've experienced a few things in your life that Jesus has done that you're kind of blown away. You're like, oh, I can't believe he did that for me. Or, it's amazing that he's so patient with me, that he's forgiven me so much, that he loves me so much. You aren't ready for this either. Look with me at Mark chapter 10, verse 32. It's kind of just blunt and startling. Mark 10, verse 32. They were on their way up to Jerusalem. They're literally just walking with Jesus leading the way. And the disciples were astonished, while those who followed were afraid. So everybody's got all these kind of emotional reactions going on. And again, he took the 12 aside and he told them what was going to happen to him. We're going up to Jerusalem, he said. And the Son of Man will be delivered over to the chief priests and the teachers of the law, the people that had been opposing him the whole time. They will condemn him to death and hand him over to the Gentiles or the Romans. And they will mock him and spit on him and flog him and kill him. And 3 days later, he will rise. I mean, this was not what anybody was expecting on this day's little walking journey, right? This was unusual. And for those followers who had seen Jesus come out on top every time, it just didn't make any sense. They couldn't get there. I mean, it was so specific. He's going to be arrested. He's going to be mistreated. He's going to be charged. He's going to be executed. It was so specific. And it just didn't register at all. They kind of adopted the Navy SEAL mantra of ignore and override. Like if something comes against me and I don't like it or I don't understand it, I just ignore it, I override it, I move on. I mean, he had come out on top too many times for this to happen. It just can't happen. That's not what it's going to be. They couldn't believe it, and so they just denied it. It just went over their head, and they pretended like they had never heard it, which seems so odd. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized it's not odd at all. There's a lot of times that we deny what Jesus tells us, isn't there? I mean, there's that conversation he keeps telling us to have, and we just don't have it. We can't believe that he wants us to do that, and so we ignore it. There's that text message that we need to send, and we won't do it because we just don't want to open that door. We just don't want to go down that road. There's that hurt that we need to forgive. And he keeps bringing it up and he keeps reminding us, and we just keep ignoring it and denying it because no, it can't be. It doesn't work like that. And we're just going to ignore it and override it because he must be mistaken. He must not mean me. This doesn't really make sense. This isn't what I wanted. This isn't what I signed up. I don't understand it. I don't believe it. And I'm just going to ignore it. And this is where Jesus, the leader, that maybe you didn't know he was. This is where Jesus, the leader, shows there's always more to come. Because even though the disciples are denying it, he does something unusual. This was the third time he had told them that. And this was the third time they had missed it. And let me ask you a question. Do you think he was just going to say it over and over and over because he figured, well, sooner or later they'll get it? No. He knew they weren't going to get it. So why bother telling them 3 times? Why keep bringing it up if you know they're not going to listen? Because Jesus knew eventually they would look back and they would realize, oh, he was right. That's exactly what happened. And when they realized that he was right, it would build their faith. So what kind of leader is Jesus? He's the kind of leader with more to come, that even if we deny, he builds our faith. Even when we don't believe it, don't act on it, pretend like we never heard it, he is still working to build our faith. That's the kind of leader that Jesus is. Later that same day, and we're going to be able to read everything, but you can read about this in chapter 11 of Mark. But later that same day, Jesus is getting closer to Jerusalem, and he does something a little odd, at least to our ears. He sends 2 of his guys to go get a donkey and bring it so that he could ride the donkey into Jerusalem, which you're like, hey, bro, we just walked like for the last week and a half. We've been walking. You need a donkey now for the last, few, what's going on here? It seems odd to us, but it was not odd to them because you see, it was Passover. And again, I know if you're not Jewish, you're like, oh, well, that is Thanksgiving and Christmas rolled into one. And at this time of the world's history and at this place on the planet in Jerusalem, man, the city swelled about 10 times its normal size. People came from everywhere. This was the holiday. This was the festival. This was the place everybody wanted to be. They were all in Jerusalem, and Jesus is on his way, and he's going to ride a donkey into town. And everyone there instantly got it. Because Zechariah 9:9 had said, the Messiah, the one you've been waiting on, the one who's going to change everything. And for those Jewish people, they believed the ones that were going to overthrow Rome and get rid of the empire, and we're going to be the new empire. We're going to have life on our terms. It's going to work out for us now. He's going to come, not on a war horse, not behind a chariot, but riding a donkey. And so when Jesus rides in on a donkey into a city that is swollen, that is in festival mode, and most people know who he is, and he is claiming to be a Messiah, it is on, man. It is like a Super Bowl parade. People are going nuts. They are yelling and celebrating. They're crying out, Hosanna. They're taking off their coats and throwing them on the ground. They're cutting palm trees down to make the path smooth to welcome Jesus in. It is like a Super Bowl parade. And you know how crowds are. Right? Some of them were truly devoted followers. Some of them were just fanboys, like, hey, I don't know what's going on, let's go see. And some of them were like, I don't know why we're having a party, but we're having a party, so let's just do that. They were just happy to be there. But they all had one thing in common. Everyone wanted to win. Everyone wanted to win. And if Jesus is going to win, let's get behind that. That's how a lot of us are, right? If he's going to win, if they're going to win, if it's going to win, then I want to get behind that. If they're going to lose, then I'm out. I don't want anything to do with that. And Jesus knows this because we're told in the Gospel of Luke, as he gets really close to the city, he pulls off aside and he stops and he looks at this city and these people that he came to save. The Bible says he wept. When you really look at that word, this is ugly cry, snot and tears. He's devastated. And it's this a crazy picture. What a contrast. People are celebrating, throwing stuff on the ground, yelling. Jesus is over here, ugly crying. What why? Shouldn't this be a great moment? You see, Jesus knew. He came to bring them life, but they would rather just have things a little easier than life with God. They just wanted to get rid of the Romans. They were bandwagoners. They're kind of like Phoenix with Diamondback fans, right? When the team is great, it's phenomenal. When they're not winning, you can't give away the tickets. Jesus realized, you're not here because of what I can do for you. You're just here because you want your life to be a little bit easier. And you're with me as long as I'm winning. But as soon as it feels like there's a setback, as soon as it feels like I might be losing, you're out. You're going to quit and back away and pretend like you were never there. And the proof is so obvious because 5 days later, the same people that were shouting Hosanna are shouting crucify. And the same people that were cutting down palm branches are raising up a cross. And the people that were laying their clothes out, they're gambling for his clothes. What does Jesus do when everyone has an it depends mindset? When I'm in it if you're going to win it, but if it looks like we're going to lose, I'm out. It just depends on how much it benefits me, Jesus. That's where I'm at. How does a leader respond? See, there's more to come with Jesus as a leader, because even if we have an it depends approach, Jesus displays faithfulness. He didn't give up, write off, put away those who said it depends. Those who were very fickle, like, I'm not really in it unless it's going to work out for me. And Jesus didn't give up on them. That's the kind of leader that Jesus is. And so we've got predictions of death, which is pretty heavy. We've got this fickleness of people that are in it as long as it's working out in their favor. But it gets a little tougher. It gets a little tougher. And if you've got your Bible open still, look at Mark 14. Because we move from this whole idea of it depends to downplaying. If you fast forward a couple of days after Jesus enters the city, in Mark 14, Jesus is spending part of his Thursday night in a garden. And you've probably heard this passage before. Mark 14, verse 32. They went to a place called Gethsemane. And Jesus said to his disciples, "Sit here while I pray." And he took Peter, James, and John along with him. And he began to be deeply distressed and troubled. "My soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death," he said to them. "Stay here and keep watch." And going a little further, he fell to the ground and he prayed that if possible, the hour might pass from him. "Abba, Father," he said, "everything is possible for you. Take this cup from me. Yet not what I will, but what you will." And he returned to his disciples and he found them sleeping. "Simon," he said to Peter, "are you asleep? Couldn't you keep watch for 1 hour? Watch and pray so that you will not fall into temptation, because the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak." Once more, he went away and prayed the same thing. And when he came back, he again found them sleeping because their eyes were heavy and they did not know what to say to him. Returning the third time, he said, "Are you still sleeping and resting? Enough. The hour has come. Look, the Son of Man is delivered into the hands of sinners. Rise, let us go. Here comes my betrayer." You know the scene if you've been around church. If you've been around church at Easter, Jesus is praying in the garden. And he's devastated. Again, the language here is language of deep horror and anguish, of an incredibly troubled soul. Have you ever wondered why? I mean, he just told them a couple days ago, "I'm going to go in the city and this is what's going to happen and I'm going to get killed and I'm going to rise from the..." Like, he knew the story. And so, yes, he's all man and all God. And so maybe there was a little bit of fear or discomfort or whatever, but I don't think he was thinking about quitting. I don't think he was kind of trying to tap out. So why so dramatic in your response? I can't guess Jesus' emotions. The Bible doesn't tell us what they were. But I do know this, that Jesus is absolutely abhorrent of sin for a very specific reason. Not because he wants to punish the sinner and not because the sin is so personally insulting. Because of this very, very simple idea. God is holy. That means he's set apart. He's different. And sin breaks the connection to God. That's why Jesus was so overwrought at the very idea of being separated from God. It wasn't, "I need to be a good boy and not make any mistakes because I don't want to, commit a sin." It was because the world's sin is going to be loaded upon me, whatever, if that's what it needs to be, but it's going to separate me from my Father. And I've never known that separation. In contrast to his disciples, who were tired, who were sleepy, and making excuses. For Jesus, sin was this core, critical issue, not because of behavior, but because of relationship. And for the disciples, and I hope I'm not being too hard on them, it's not that important. They downplayed it. It's not that important. It doesn't matter that much. It's easy to find fault with the disciples. But I have a long running history of downplaying my sin and of making excuses for why I'm not holy, set apart. Truth is, so do you. We all do. We always downplay it. Even though Jesus is horrified, we tend to shake it off, right? We downplay the impact of our sin. We downplay the causes of it. We downplay the effects of it. We pretend it doesn't really damage the relationships. We act like it's not that big a deal. We rationalize it. We justify it. It's just a little lie. It's only a little bit of money. It's only one more drink. It's not that big a deal. And honestly, if you were in my shoes, you'd have done the same thing, kind of downplaying. And how does Jesus, the leader, respond when we downplay our sin and he is horrified by it? See, again, with Jesus, there's always more to come. Even if we downplay sin, Jesus makes us holy. He says, "You can't handle this on your own. You don't seem to understand the depth of it, but I will take it on and I will make you holy because you can't do it yourself." That's the kind of leader that Jesus is. So that's what he does when we deny what he says. When we have an it depends attitude, and when we downplay our sins, this is how he responds. But what does he do when we're devastated? One more passage, Mark chapter 15. And if you're comfortable doing this, I just invite you to just simply listen. Close your eyes, listen to this story. It is heavy. It is difficult. But that's the point. If you want to read along, it's Mark chapter 15, verse 16. If you want to just simply sit and listen, I encourage you to do that. The soldiers led Jesus away into the palace and called together the whole company of soldiers and put a robe on him. And they twisted together a crown of thorns and set it on him. And they called out to him, "Hail, King of the Jews!" Again and again, they struck him on the head with a staff and they spit on him. Falling on their knees, they paid homage to him. When they had mocked him, they took off the purple robe and put his own clothes on him, and they led him out to crucify him. A man from Cyrene, Simon, the father of Alexander and Rufus, was passing by on his way in the country, and they forced him to carry the cross. They brought Jesus to the place called Golgotha, which means place of the skull. And they offered him wine mixed with myrrh, but he didn't take it. Then they crucified him. Dividing up his clothes, they cast lots to see what each one would get. It was 9 a.m. when they crucified him, and the notice of the charge against him read, King of the Jews. They crucified 2 rebels with him, one on his right, one on his left. And those who passed by, they hurled insults at him, shaking their head and saying, "So you who are going to destroy the temple and build it in 3 days, come down from the cross, save yourself." In the same way, the chief priests, the teachers of the law mocked him. They said he saved others, but he can't save himself. Let this Messiah, this King of Israel, come down from the cross. Then we will see and believe. And those who crucified with him also heaped insults on him. It is a dark, hard to see in your mind kind of experience. And I don't fault anybody for this, but I know for so many in the church, we go from the triumphal entry where we see Jesus entering Jerusalem, and it's a celebration, and it's powerful, and it's amazing, straight to Easter where Jesus is resurrected, and we miss the depth of what happens in between. The hard moments. The disciples were devastated. They had banked their whole life on this, and it looked like it was about to burn down. Jesus, oddly enough, was not devastated by this. But how does a leader in the middle of all this respond? When those who quote unquote follow him have denied what he said, have taken an it depends as long as it works out for me approach, have downplayed their sin, and now sit in their devastation, how does he respond? You see, Jesus wants you to know who he is. And so he comes and sits with you in your worst moments. Because we connect with people not when we're at our best. We connect most deeply with people when they are with us at our worst. And Jesus does not bring up the denial and the it depends and the downplaying and the devastation to rub it in their face or to make them feel guilty and ashamed. He sits with us in it. And he says, I want you to know me. I want you to know my heart. That's the kind of leader that Jesus is. He wants you to know who he is. And if there was any doubt in your mind, again, you look at the Gospel of Luke and we see Jesus nailing up on the cross, and he's there, and everybody has either abandoned him or has turned to mocking him or have given up on the it depends. It looks like you're losing, so I'm out, and he is on his own. And what is his heart? Luke says that Jesus from the cross speaks out some words, "Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they're doing." if you would allow me. Father, forgive Brett, for he doesn't know what he's doing when he denies me. Father, forgive Brett because he doesn't understand that his it depends attitude is keeping him from us. Father, forgive Brett because he's going to downplay his sins and he doesn't understand how important it is that he is right with you. And Father, forgive Brett in his devastation when he's looking for someone to blame because he doesn't know what he's doing. And Jesus prays the same prayer for you. That is the leader that Jesus is. There is always more to come. And even in your loss and your devastation, his response is to bring you life. That's the leader that Jesus is. This is who invites you to walk with him and follow him, even in devastation and loss. Jesus brings life. It all comes down to a very simple question. You see who Jesus is as a leader. And Jesus is no concerns, no apologies, no hesitation to ask you to follow him, to even command you to follow him. And there's really only one variable. Do you trust him? You shouldn't trust somebody that you don't know. But it absolutely makes sense to trust someone you do know. And as you see the kind of leader that Jesus is, I hope that it helps you understand and know him a little bit better. Because he calls you to trust him. And it's not a trust like, oh, I trust in the government to take care of me, or I trust in my boss, or I'm trusting in my family to love me. I mean, those are great things. But this is a different kind of trust. I stake my life on it. I am willing to go where you tell me to go, to say what you tell me to say, to rearrange the priorities of my life. Everything about me now depends on you, because I've come to the place where I realize that you can take all of the nothing that I bring and you can exchange it for everything that you have. It's trusting that no matter what I've done, there's more to come. No matter what I've done, downplayed, denied, it depends, devastated, doesn't matter. No matter what I've done, there's more to come. That Thursday of that week, that was a long day for Jesus. Because those same people that he spent time with on the road that denied him and had the it depends attitude and would later that night pretend like sin wasn't all that important. Before all those things happened, he sat with that same group, excited, looking forward to celebrating what we know now as the Lord's Supper. For them, it was Passover. And Jesus reinterpreted it. He changed what it meant, which should have set off alarms, because God's the one that instituted Passover, and only who could change it? Only God could change it. Passover was the celebration of the setting free from slavery of the children of Israel, and it was commemorated by the sacrifice of a lamb. Jesus reinterpreted all of that, and he said it's the Lord's Supper. And it's put in place to commemorate the setting free of his people from sin. And it was marked by a sacrifice of the Lamb of God. And we're going to celebrate that in just a moment. You see, our sin, which I know is not popular to talk about, it really hasn't changed all that much. You can go all the way back to Adam and Eve. The very first sin, eating the fruit, the one thing they were told not to do, because they felt like God was holding out on them. Because they didn't trust his love. In so many ways, every sin that's ever been sinned is the same thing. We think that maybe somehow, some way, God's holding out on us. And we don't trust his love in the moment. And the Lord's Supper reminds us we can. The prediction of the death, entering the city, the prayer in the garden, the devastation, they all point to one simple truth. You can trust him as your king, as your leader, not just your sin forgiver, the one who sets the course and direction of your life. And if you're a follower of Jesus, I invite you, we're going to celebrate this Lord's Supper in just a moment. And if you're not yet, maybe this is the moment that you've realized it is about trusting and following. And so we're going to celebrate this supper together, and we're going to do it a little bit different. Our team is going to come, and they're going to sing, and you're just going to stay seated. They're going to sing a special, and you can worship along with them. And you take the elements when you're ready. But as you're worshiping, as you're listening, as you're soaking in this moment and thinking about the leader that Jesus is, take a moment and pray. Ask him for what you need. Maybe you need a little more faith. Maybe you need a little more consistency. Maybe there's a sin that he's been asking you to deal with. Or maybe even this morning you've come and you're feeling devastated. And you need some of the life that he offers. Ask him for what you need and thank him for what he's given. As the team comes and sings, make this your moment to worship, to celebrate the supper, to engage with all that Jesus has for you today.